Did Texas do enough in the portal to make it back to the college football playoff in 2025? On today's episode, a conversation with Locked On the Portal's Brian Smith coming up next. Intro.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. You were locked on to the Texas Longhorns. I'm your host, BK Brad Kellner, Texas grad, Austin native, and longtime sports radio host here in the Lone Star State. Thank you for making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day every single day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as well. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and tell your Longhorn friends about Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. As promised, here is part one of my conversation with Locked On the Portal's Brian Smith.
Absolutely. Texas has the brand. They've got Arch. They've got an experienced coach who's been around. Seems like they've got a culmination of the right pieces to conservatively be in the national title hope this next season. Now, everybody has needs. And before we got on the show, I didn't know it was this massive. What'd you say? 7 guys were gone from D-tackle from last year for one reason or another, draft, eligibility, transfer, whatever it may be. So that shows you, even a school like Texas, which you could argue is the easiest school in the country to be the head coach of and win, you could make that argument. Even they have holes. Like if there wasn't the portal right now, there's zero chance they could win the title next year. Zero.
Agreed. And yeah, it's pretty rare to see any school get 5 players at one position in the transfer portal in just one offseason. But Texas only had 2 scholarship returnees at defensive tackle coming back for 2025. Like you said, 7 departures, 3 to the draft, 4 to the portal. They needed bodies there, and it was clear that that was a point of emphasis for Steve Sarkisian and this coaching staff. So yeah, a total revamp of the interior of the defensive line room for Texas. And the Longhorns have had great D-tackle play in each of the last 2 seasons. It's why they've been so good in each of the last 2 seasons. They wanted to make sure that they had the big dogs to battle against some of the toughest competition in the trenches.
I agree. So what is the portal formula for Texas? Are they just trying to find pieces here or there that plug in, that are usually seniors, fifth-year seniors? I know the D-tackle spot was like whatever they could get that were good players. That aside, are they looking for veterans? What is it you think that is overall the theme for Steve Sarkisian?
Yeah, normally they're looking for elite playmakers, right? You go back to when Steve Sarkisian took over in 2021. I mean, Texas was in a horrible spot, and then the Longhorns went 5-7 in Sark's first year. So at that point, they were just trying to fill a roster and get enough bodies who could actually play. But now, more often than not, Texas is looking for upgrades. Now, you said it. At defensive tackle, they just needed bodies because they didn't have enough. But usually you think of Adonai Mitchell, who Texas brought in from Georgia, who was a part of both of their national championship teams a couple of years ago. You look at a guy like Matthew Golden, look at an Isaiah Bond, who were both brought in last year to help. I mean, Texas tries to find guys that they know are going to be upgrades versus what they already have. They're not really looking for depth pieces anymore. They are looking for instant upgrades, whether they're rental guys or whether they're guys that have a couple of years left of eligibility. Normally, that's what Texas is trying to do. I think with every position besides defensive tackle this year, that's what they did do. But as Texas has figured things out on the field, the quality of player that they're looking for in the portal has definitely increased.
Yeah, I would agree. And they're finding pieces in a lot of different ways. Let me give you an example. I saw Cal play last year. Jack Endries had a few catches in that game, and just their offensive line was horrible. And like the way he moved, the way he did things, he understood. Fernando Mendoza had 0 time to throw. Like their offense was bad. You give that guy the opportunity to play at Texas, it's a different deal. 91% of the throws to Jack Endries last year ended up being completions. That is insane.
Wow.
Yeah, so they found a piece. Now, you're not going to replace, I forget the guy's name, the tight end that Texas had. He was awesome. But at least you get somebody that is, quote unquote, in the same stratosphere.
Yeah. And Jack Endries, he's my favorite portal pickup in this entire class for Texas, right? They brought in 10 guys, but I think Jack Endries is the guy who stands alone in large part because of the importance of the tight end position in the Steve Sarkisian offense. Gunnar Helm, the guy you're talking about, he set school records for most catches and most receiving yards by a tight end in 2024. That's a former 3-star recruit, and that's a guy who, was Texas's number 2 tight end for a few seasons before bursting on the scene last year. So you look at what Andrews did with average quarterback play on an average at best Cal team. And those numbers were very impressive. Now you put him in the Sark offense with a better quarterback in Arch Manning. Andrews has 2 years of eligibility remaining, but I feel like there's a very good chance he's one and done at Texas because I think he's a future NFL tight end. And I think in this offense, he's got a chance to put up some really, really big numbers.
Agree across the board. That is a good football player, and he fits the NFL mold because he's a motion guy. He's played in a complex offense at Cal. Now he's with Sark. That is very advantageous for his long-term future. Now let's dive into the questions I sent you earlier. I think these are fun. Do you think Texas met their portal needs overall? I mean, there could always be more additions, but as of April 25th, where do you feel Texas stands on that question?
Brian, it's funny. If you asked me that question a week and a half ago, I would have said no, because Texas, they brought in 5 guys in the early portal window, but the Longhorns portal class ranked outside of the top 60 after January. And it's like, well, what's the point? Texas had a top 5 portal class last year. They're a team that expects to compete for a national championship. You were wondering why they were so lethargic in the winter window, but then 5 more portal pickups at huge positions of need. They bring in a ton of talented players with injuries from Cal, with Emmett Mosley V from Stanford, with the defensive tackles. They upgraded at kicker as well, and any Texas fan knows how bad the kicking game was towards the end of 2024. So, yeah, a lot has changed over the last week and a half to 2 weeks. Texas cleaned up here in the spring window, and I do believe they have met their biggest transfer portal needs. Absolutely.
Cole Brevard out of Purdue's 330-ish, and then Murad Watson, 315 or so out of Syracuse. He was a freshman All-American, depending on the service you want to look at. Our 2 D tackles they brought in among 5. Travis Shaw from North Carolina is another guy. They brought in Hero Canoe from Ohio State, and they also brought in Lavon Johnson from Maryland, all 300-plus pound guys. Obviously, they want to 2-gap a little bit, but overall they want to be big up front. Do they have the depth and everything they need in the back 7? Obviously, D-tackle is good to go. To really be ready for another 15-game, 16-game kind of season?
Steve Sarkisian thinks so. At one of his media availabilities last week, he talked about the secondary being the strength of this football team, which is crazy considering Jahdae Barron, who won the Thorpe Award, is off to the NFL. Andrew Makuba, who was really, really good for Texas in his 1 year here, is off to the NFL. So those guys won't be easy to replace. But Texas has a few talented pieces back. They've recruited incredibly well. Then you look at linebacker. Anthony Hill's an All-American caliber player. He's a future first-round pick. Leonga Lafau, his running mate, burst on the scene. I think that's an under-the-radar name that maybe not a lot of people know about across college football, but I think he's going to have a breakout season. And then Brad Spence, one of those transfers. I think he's a solid linebacker with some SEC experience coming in from Arkansas. And then you look at the edge, right? I mean, Colin Simmons. Brian, I don't know how many freshmen in America were better than Colin Simmons last year. You look at Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State. There's a couple of other guys you could point to, but this dude is a beast off the edge. Trey Moore is back for another year. Ethan Burke is back for another year. So, yeah, the biggest question for the Texas defense was defensive tackle. But, again, you bring in 5 guys. That answers a lot of those questions. So, there's a lot more to replace for Texas on offense, which means they need their defense to be buttoned up and ready to go early in the season. And I think the Longhorns have the horses in the stable to have one of the best defenses in America this season.
Who is going to be the player for Texas out of the portal that has the greatest impact?
Yeah, I mean, injuries, I'd go back to him. I think he's going to have a huge impact on this team. And then you probably have to look at the defensive line, and I think the 2 names you brought up, Cole Brevard and Murad Watson. I don't know how many people are watching Purdue football these days. If you are, I mean, God bless you. Like, I shouldn't tell anyone to go get another hobby because sports is my only hobby, but maybe go find something better to do on your Saturdays. instead of watching them. But he's a guy with more than 1,000 career snaps. He's a guy who graded out pretty well, according to Pro Football Focus, going up against really good Big Ten competition. So he, I think, will lead the Texas defensive tackle room in snaps this year. And then Murad Watson, you said it, freshman All-American, a guy who chose Syracuse over Tennessee in his high school days, and a guy who had a bunch of interest in the portal once he entered. I think he's going to be important as well. So, those three guys. Emmett Mosley, I know you asked for one. I'm giving you damn near half the transfers that Texas brought in. But those 3 to 4 guys, I think, will get a ton of run and put up some pretty good numbers for the Horns. More from my conversation with Brian Smith here in a moment. But before that, a word for our friends at Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more, experts who are ready to help take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, from AI to IT to web development and marketing and so much more. If you need extra hands for a short-term project or you need a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. You can find the right talent. Hiring is very easy to do. Posting a job is free and simple. Within a day, you're going to get multiple qualified candidates to choose from. So go to Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. Again, Upwork.com, that's UPWORK.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today. Welcome back to Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. More from our conversation with our friends at the portal.
All right, Brad, here's a fun question for you. This is a trend. I did a podcast earlier today. I said Notre Dame, Ohio State, and Texas are different than anybody else because they recruit, they retain, they develop, and they really do a great job. When I say retain, that you got to spend some money. There are schools, Texas, and everybody's trying to get somebody off somebody else's roster. I don't care what school you are, your school's cheating. I'm just going to throw that out there right now.
No, it's only your rival schools, Brian. Your favorite school is not cheating. They're doing things the right way. It's just your biggest rivals that are tampering right now.
Brad likes to appease his fan base. That is duly noted. With that being said, do you think a major focus for Steve and his staff was player retention through NIL? And has he discussed that in any press conferences or anything, or have you heard any back channels on that?
You know, Texas does a great job of keeping their best players here in Austin. Like, obviously, Texas has attrition. Every program has attrition, but the Longhorns haven't lost, a starter or even just a key contributor in the last few seasons. You've had no Nico Iamaleava type situations here. You haven't really had anything come to the limelight in terms of a guy publicly asked for more money and Texas has to answer questions about it. So, look, I'm not going to be naive. This stuff definitely goes down behind the scenes, even though Texas is in a great spot right now and the culture is one of the best in the country. I'm sure this stuff happens behind the scenes. You hear about it happening behind the scenes. But again, the Longhorns are able to do a really good job of keeping their best players at home and ensuring that any sort of qualms or beef or issues when it comes to NIL money doesn't reach the light of day.
That is very important because I think chemistry is the difference. Look at the Final Four last year. 3 of those 4 that I just mentioned made the Final Four. And the guys that I'm a little leery. The next one I would put is Penn State, who was the 4th team in the Final Four. Yeah. They all recruit well out of high school. They plug in a few players from the portal that are key, kind of like Texas at D tackle, and they retain their key guys as they develop them. The programs that do that formula are the ones that are going to have the best chance to win it. Not saying that a quarterback couldn't get hot and somebody couldn't spoil the party, but your odds are still best with the high school, develop, retain, and then add a few pieces with a sprinkle at the end. So I think that Texas has done a great job. I'm going to throw something at you here. Interestingly enough, like Texas, obviously, location, money, it's an oil school, a lot of tradition in all those things. Who's the underrated portal addition? Because you're used to like all the limelight stuff at Texas. Is there anybody out of the portal you're like, this guy's going to surprise some people?
Brian, I'm really sorry to do this because I know you like viewers and listeners, but I'm going to pick the punter that Texas picked up in the portal, Jack Bowmeister. Yeah, Jack Bowmeister coming over from Utah. He's one of those Australian guys, and it feels like all of the best punters in this sport are coming over from Australia. Texas was horrible in special teams last year, which is weird. Like, even when Texas was 5-7 and 8-5 in Sark's first 2 years, they were one of the best special teams units in America. In 2023, when they made the playoff, they were one of the best special teams units in America. Last year, Texas was like 116th in the S&P Plus rankings for special teams. It was a total disaster. And a part of it was the punting game just wasn't good enough. They had a true freshman, Michael Kern, who actually just entered the portal a couple of days ago. So he's leaving Texas. But, he wasn't ready for the big time. And Texas was one of the worst punting teams in America. And they lost a lot of hidden yardage because of that. You bring in Jack Bowmeister, who was a 44, 45 yard per punt guy last season. That helps. I mean, Texas less than a decade ago had a punter win bowl game MVP when Michael Dixon in Texas beat Missouri with Drew Lock at the Texas Bowl a few years ago. It's important. Texas needs better overall play from its special teams. Nobody wants to see the punter, Brian, but I think Texas has a weapon at punter. People won't talk about him, but I like the Jack Bowmeister pickup.
I think that it's best said when Nick Saban says it. He used to commonly tell his quarterbacks, if a drive ends on an extra point, field goal, or punt, we're good. Don't turn it over.
Yeah.
And if you're going to have a great team, you got to have defense, but it's still helpful to the defense if the punter doesn't suck and you can get what you just talked about, hidden yardage. So you are spot on. Next, deepest position after all the portal acquisitions, the losses. What is the deepest spot for the Horns in 2025?
I'm going to go running back. Texas did lose Jaden Blue. He'll get drafted at some point this weekend, but you've got Contravion Wisner back after a 1,000-yard season. CJ Baxter tore a few CLs during fall camp last season, but that guy was the number one running back recruit in America in the class of 2023. When he's been on the field, he's looked very good, so he'll be back this season as well. You've got Jarrett Gibson going into year 2, almost 500 yards and 4 touchdowns in his true freshman season. You've got Christian Clark coming off a torn Achilles, and you've got 2 4-star early enrollees here in the class of 2025. So, yeah, I mean, Texas is loaded at running back. The Longhorns have been great at running back the last few years. I mean, Bijan Robinson, Roshan Johnson, Jonathan Brooks, Jaden Blue, they've been stacked there. I don't know if they have like one of the best 3 to 5 tailbacks in the country this year, but I don't know if there's a deeper running back room in college football than what the Longhorns are bringing to the table in 2025.
I know Baxter personally, and I've known him since he was a freshman in high school. That's an animal. If he's healthy, he'll be a very, very important piece, especially come playoff time when you're not going to be running around end a lot. Everybody's fast, Penn State or Ohio State or whoever they end up playing. Baxter's going to be important. I hope he's healthy. He's a good dude. Mm-hmm. Next, any position where you feel Texas can be vulnerable next year, or the better way to say it, maybe, what is the most vulnerable one? Like if you're going to attack UT, it would be?
It's a great question. I don't know if there's a true weakness with any of the Texas starters, but I think there are a couple of spots where their depth isn't quite where I would like it to be. Quarterback's obviously one of them. I mean, we all think the world of Arch Manning, and everyone is excited to see what he can do. But your backup quarterback is a guy named Trey Owens, who was a redshirt freshman who didn't really play at all last season. So that's a little scary there. And then I'd look at offensive line. Texas lost 4 starters from last year's offensive line. 3 of the guys who are coming in to start have a lot of experience, but there are 2 guys who don't. And also Texas has a couple of true freshmen in the 2 deep on the offensive line. So again, I think most Texas fans feel pretty good about their starting 5, but Brian, the seasons are longer than they've ever been. Guys go down in the offensive line all the time. So if Texas has some bad injury luck up front, then that could be an area of weakness for the Longhorns. And it's interesting because they didn't bring in anybody from the portal. Texas has recruited well. They've developed incredibly well on the offensive line. This is a system that has worked for the Longhorns, but they had a chance to maybe go get some more experienced depth from somewhere else. They opted to keep things in-house, and you do wonder, again, if Texas has some bad injury luck, could they be vulnerable up front? That's definitely a storyline to look out for.
Well, that's part of it. I know it's not a very popular thing to say, but the most important thing on wins and losses is who's healthy.
Yeah.
That never changes. The NFL always jokes about, well, it is a joke. They don't joke about it, but I do, that, we don't make the injury report mandatory for anything to do with Vegas. Baloney.
Yeah,
It is
right.
100% due to Vegas because people won't bet. But by the way, never believe an injury report from a coach. Ever, ever, ever. Because it's 100% a lie every time.
Yep.
But that's another story for another day. Does UT deserve the preseason number one ranking? Who would you put number one if not UT? However you want to answer that.
Yeah, I think there's a pretty clear-cut preseason top three, right? The question is, what is the order? I think Texas, Georgia, and Ohio State in some order are going to come in 1, 2, and 3 when we get to the fall. You could make a case for Texas. Obviously, there are some questions. How good is Arch Manning? Can he live up to the hype? I don't know if there's ever been a college football player with more hype surrounding him than Arch Manning, and the reasons are pretty obvious. But Texas does have 8 starters to replace on offense, and they're losing some really, really key contributors on defense. I mean, Texas might have 14 or 15 players drafted. So it's not going to be easy to replace all of that talent that is leaving the program. But can you make a case for Texas to be number one? Yeah. Like the lowest I would have them, Brian, is 3. Ohio State is losing a ton to the league, too. They also have a new quarterback coming in, so they've got some similar questions that the Longhorns have. Georgia's losing a bunch to the league. That happens every year, too. So there's questions seemingly with everybody. I don't know if I'd go Texas number 1, but I wouldn't have them below 3. So if you're an AP voter and you're thinking putting Texas 1, I wouldn't argue too much against that. But, yeah, this is an extremely talented team. The only team in America that's made the playoff in each of the last 2 years. They shouldn't be too far down the list if they're not at the very top. One segment to go on today's show. We will wrap up our chat with Brian Smith coming up next right here on Locked on Longhorns. But first, a word for our friends at FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and my goodness, a couple of great games last night. Every night is delivering highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout star, there's never been a better time to get in on the action than right now. Our friends at FanDuel make it so easy to stay in the game. Before tip-off and live, player props, performance trends, same-game parlays, fans have more ways to win than ever before. Which players are going to show up in the biggest moments? Are you picking road teams to continue their dominance? Will the home teams get back on track? Whatever you want to bet on, you can do it with FanDuel. And how about a $200 bonus? That's right. You're going to get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Talk about some added excitement to the NBA postseason. Yeah, you're going to get that with our friends at FanDuel. Again, FanDuel.com is the website. You place your first $5 bet, and if that wins, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to Locked on Longhorns, your team every day. We wrap up our conversation with Locked on the Portal's Brian Smith right now.
All right. Arch Manning, there's no way you can add more hype. I kind of feel for him in a way. And he's obviously intelligent and he's well-spoken, but he doesn't like it. We knew that in high school. He wouldn't do anything for the media. I mean, nothing. Hated it. But he's adapted. That's why I was surprised he picked Texas, because I'm like, you don't like media coverage. Why are you going to Texas?
Yeah.
That was a little surprising to me. I kind of thought in some ways he might go to Ole Miss for that, kind of hide a little bit, but he didn't. And I think he's handled it really well. How well do you think he's ready for the stage? Because, again, I feel sorry. There's nothing. I don't know the kid. Do you think that he's ready for the blitz he's going to get like in July? I'm sure they got to take him to SEC media. I assume. I don't know how you could. There would be people screaming if they didn't. What is your take overall on Manning and the hype that he's going to get?
Yeah, well, this kid's unbelievably mature, right? You got to remember, we're talking about a 19-year-old kid who has been under a microscope since really the second he was born. I mean, there's always been pressure on him, and there's always been so much attention around him, and he has handled things incredibly well. Like, this dude is an A-list celebrity right now, and he just hasn't had a bad moment. The worst thing that Arch Manning has done, Brian, is lose his student ID on campus. Like, that's his worst mess up to this point. He has handled everything incredibly well, and I think that maturity is really going to help. I think the leadership skills are absolutely there. And yeah, I think he's ready for this. I know it will be different when you're the starting quarterback at Texas. People are always paying attention. And then you combine that with what his last name is. again, it'll be more of a telescope than a microscope now with how many people are paying attention to him. But I think Arch Manning is going to handle it really well because to this point, he has handled everything incredibly well. I think he's ready for the moment. I think it helps that he got to learn from Quinn Ewers, who was one of the highest graded recruits ever. And Arch got to sit for a couple of seasons to kind of see, okay, what life is like as the starting quarterback at Texas. So I'm kind of word salading here, but long answer short, yeah, I think he's ready for the moment. And I think he kind of knows what's coming because he's been dealing with it for years.
Yeah, I'm sure he's been trained. His family, his uncles, everything. I mean, his dad was the best athlete out of the group by a mile. And that leads to this follow-up question. They brought him in on packages last year to run, and he's a big dude. But I found it interesting. The future of your program, you were going to use as a battering ram because if he injures his shoulder, you're screwed. He handled it well, and he didn't care. I mean, he ran pretty hard. He was a good athlete. Do you think Steve will turn him loose? Because you mentioned earlier, I didn't want to bring this up, but you did. So I'm just going to go back to it.
Yeah.
Texas didn't go get a backup quarterback. I was surprised by that. I'm guessing that you were too. Do you think they'll really let him run? Do you think they'll call some quarterback? Like if he goes down, they're done.
Right.
In my opinion. Unless we're shocked. The other kid you're talking about, the backup, he's a big pocket guy. He's 1985 quarterback. You can sling it, but he's not going to be the mobile guy running around from what I remember, unless I'm wrong. So they're going to let Arch run, or they're going to make him divvy the ball. I mean, they got a ton of running backs. Don't get me wrong, but what do you think?
It's funny. Sark at his press conference earlier this week talked a lot about Arch Manning's athleticism and just his dual threat ability, but he made it a point of emphasis to say, in third down situations and in short yardage situations, basically telling you that, hey, don't expect this guy to be Haynes King next year where he's got 15 to 20 carries a game, and that's a huge staple of this offense. It's tough for Steve Sarkisian. Like, you got to use Arch Manning's legs because that's a weapon. I mean, the guy eclipsed 22 miles an hour on a 65-yard touchdown run he had against UTSA when he came in for Quinn Ewers after he got hurt early last season. Like, he is a threat with his legs. So you need that element in your offense. Texas has really struggled in the red zone the last couple of years. Having a mobile quarterback, I think, helps with that. But like you said, Brian, if Arch goes down, it's season over for Texas. So I think Sark will be a little overcautious with that. And my guess is every single day, or at least every single time that Arch and Sark are together, Sark is telling Arch, get down. Don't take hits. Don't take it. Slide, get out of bounds, throw it away. Don't do anything silly. I think because like you said, any team starting quarterback is important, but for Texas, they don't have any experience behind Arch. They need number 16 on the field.
Last question for you here today, Brad. Texas plays in the SEC now, so they're not unaccustomed to seeing a game here or there that's rough. They're going to have Georgia, etc. Tough schedule. Which game? The Georgia game's obvious. But which games do you see Texas having the most likelihood of either struggling or losing for this upcoming season? And why?
Well, everyone said Texas had a really easy schedule last year, which cracks me up because before Texas made the move to the SEC, it was like, they can't handle the weekly grind of going up against the SEC. Even our bad teams are really good. And all of a sudden, Texas joins the league and starts dominating. And it's like, you didn't play anybody. So I get a kick out of that. I mean, how about the opening game of the year? Texas going to the Horseshoe to take on the defending national champion Ohio State Buckeyes. Like I said it earlier, Brian, I think Texas, Georgia, and Ohio State are the top three teams in America going into next year. You got to play on the road at Ohio State and on the road at Georgia. So those are your two obvious ones. If Texas can just split those two games, then they're a lock to make it to the college football playoff. Texas wins both of those games, they're going to be the number one seed going into the college football playoff. Those are the obvious ones. I'll try to be a little less obvious here. For the whole month of October, Texas doesn't play a home game. Their only home game on the schedule is in Dallas against Oklahoma, where Texas is the designated home team. But they got to go to the Swamp to play Florida. They've got a game against Kentucky on the road. They've got a game in Starkville against Mississippi State on the road. I don't think any of those teams are unbeatable. I think Texas is better than all three of them. But when you're going that long away from home, there might be a slip up there. So something in the month of October on the road. If DJ Lagway is healthy and as good as a lot of people think he's going to be, maybe Florida can win that game. I don't know. But one of those three could be a slip up spot for Texas. But Brian, I mean, the Longhorns are going to be favored in 10, maybe 11 games on their schedule. So I think at worst, this is a 9-3 Texas team, but more than likely we're talking about 10 or 11 wins and another trip to the college football playoff. That's going to do it for today's episode. If you've made it this far, number one, thank you. Number two, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, rate 5 stars, and tell your friends about Locked On Longhorns. We appreciate y'all making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day. Make sure you check out the portal as well. Brian Smith, all of the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings from around the country, not just with the Texas Longhorns. So you can be the most informed college football fan out there. Find the portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. And we'll talk Texas baseball, more Texas football, and so much more on tomorrow's show. Thank y'all for tuning in. As always, horns up, mics off. We'll see y'all next time. This is Locked On Longhorns.